gave her a smaller nose and, of course, did up her hair all nice. And so I'm thinking, if that kind of stuff can happen to them, maybe I should get an extreme makeover of some kind. Maybe I need to be, if I were going to be some dude, maybe it would be this. Yeah. Paint that boy green and call him the Hulk. That's Lou Ferrigno. Okay, so I'm never going to look like that, and I really don't want to, because that would freak people out. But I'm thinking to myself, in my spiritual life, there's no shortcut. I can't just walk into a doctor and say, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to augment my love, and if you could cut out just, 80% of my selfishness, I'd really like that. And let's shave off just a little bit of the temper. I'm good, I need some of it, but just shave off a little bit of the temper, and then, an hour later I walk out with bandages on my soul, and a few days later I unwrap them, and now I'm a perfect person. There's no shortcut. If you want to grow spiritually, you have to put in some work, and it begins by recognizing where you're going, and the goal is to be like God. So if you're already there, let's talk afterwards, but if you're not there, you've got a direction, you've got a distance to move. So how do we get there? Step 2, let's talk about initiative. I claim that God blesses your risks, and so I want some people to take a risk today. Can I have 2 people who are in relatively good health and don't need an extreme makeover? No, I'm just saying the health thing, not the anything else. Can I have 2 people who are in relatively good health? Just raise your hands and take the risk of raising your hand. Do you think you're in pretty good health? JC, do you think you're in pretty good health? Okay, come on up here. Okay. And Tiffany, you think you're in pretty good health? Okay. We got 2 ladies who are taking risks of initiative, and they're going to come on up here. And Tiffany, your job, here, let me have this. You're not going to be able to take notes. I'm sorry. And the pen. Okay. Your job is to come up here and sit on this stool right there and do the weights. Okay? There you go. Just, curl them. Something you can. There are 3 weights there. You can pick which ones you want. Just and Tiffany, your job's a little more difficult. What I need you to do is come over here. And have you seen one of these devices before? No. Okay. This is the Body by Jake Bun and Thigh Rocker. And what you do here, I'll demonstrate. You sit down right there and you put your feet there. And then you grab here, and then you just rock. That's all you do. Can you do that a couple seconds for us? Yeah, just keep going. All right. You guys just do your thing. Thanks. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But so what I wanted to recognize is that you guys are taking a risk here. You're taking some initiative, and now everybody gets to watch you, work those abs, buns, thighs. It's pretty good, okay? And you might want to switch sides. Muscle confusion, I hear, is important. But, so as you're doing it, tell your arms that they're doing something different because you want to confuse them. So anyway, we got to take some initiative, and I want to ask you to turn in your Bibles to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. We're just going to let them do their thing for a little bit. And this is all being recorded, too, so you can hear it later if you miss some blanks. But go ahead and flip 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick it up in verse 12, okay? And I want to show you the Apostle Paul as a dude who took some huge risks and who had to discipline himself in a pretty serious way. You guys doing all right? Okay, is it tiring? Okay, just keep going. We'll get there in a bit. Okay, so we're going to start in verse 12. If you're there, just go ahead and follow along with me as I read. Paul says, "If others have this right of support from you, shouldn't we have it all the more?" He's talking about finances. He's talking about money support. He says, "But we did not use this right. On the contrary, we put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ." Put up with anything. Even if someone asks you to do something weird like exercise through church, I'm going to put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ. Don't you know that those who work in the temple get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in what is offered on the altar? In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should receive their living from the gospel. But I have not used any of these rights. And I'm not writing this in the hope that you would do such things for me. I would rather die than have anyone deprive me of this boast. Yet when I preach the gospel, I cannot boast, for I am compelled to preach. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. If I preach voluntarily, I have a reward. If not voluntarily, I'm simply discharging the trust committed to me. Doing all right? What then is my reward? Just this, that in preaching the gospel I may offer it free of charge, and so not make use of my rights in preaching it. Okay, here's what I wanted to draw your attention to with this, is that Paul has the right, according to the Bible, Paul has the right to ask his hearers to support him financially. He has the right to tell the people who live in Corinth that you need to pay me a salary for the message that I'm bringing to you. But he doesn't do that. When he's in Corinth, he works on his own. He makes tents. And he doesn't take any money from them. And we're going to find out in just the next verse why he doesn't take any money from him. But it sort of goes along with the cultural dilemma of that day, that if someone were to pay Paul, then Paul is on their payroll. That means they can influence Paul, and they can tell Paul what he can say and what he can't say. And Paul says, I'm not going to do anything that will hinder me, so I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to offer myself to you for free, he says. And that's a major financial risk. So here's Paul, and he's willing to take a major financial risk. That's the first risk that he takes. And then secondly, if you keep reading, 1 Corinthians 9, beginning in verse 19, Paul says, though I'm free, notice he says, I'm free. I haven't been paid by you, so I'm free to do whatever I want. But though I'm free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. He says this in verse 22, skip to 22. He says, to the weak I became weak to win the weak. I've become all things to all men so that by all possible means I might save some. Here's the deal. Paul's taking a risk there. Because see, no one thought that a Jewish person should act like a non-Jewish person. And Paul gets himself in trouble. One day Peter comes up to him and he's like, Paul, you're doing this the wrong way. We've never done this stuff before. We're not going to start doing it now. And Paul's like, dude, I'm taking a risk. I don't care what the result is, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure people hear this message. So Paul is a guy who says, I'm taking initiative no matter what the obstacles are.